is just the land of extremes. You got too much or you got nothing.
East of Tibooburra, in the far northwest corner of New South Wales, lies Narriearra Station. It's a vast property, more than 150,000 hectares, 1,300 square kilometres of what's known as the Channel Country. Narriearra's northern boundary flanks the Queensland border. Its eastern fence line extends into no man's land.
It's not far off the size of the ACT, so it's a very sizable patch of country in the northwest of New South Wales.
For more than a century, Narriearra was owned by the O'Connor family. In June 2020, it was sold to the New South Wales government, the largest acquisition of private land for a national park in the state's history. The transition from private to public ownership is well down the track. Narriearra Homestead sits at the end of a rough and dusty road. Lord of this modest manor is Bill O'Connor.
How's things, mate?
Okay.
He's lived in this harsh and remote environment for 84 years.
Few drops of rain out there on the windscreen.
Starting already.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
a little bit,
yeah.
just a little bit.
So it moves all the way through this landscape down through.
For biologist and National Parks Ranger Jamie Norris, the purchase of this giant tract of semi-desert is an enormous thrill.
By any measure, it's one of the most important acquisitions the New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service has ever taken. Its ecological values are immense. We've got over 50 species of plants that we've recorded here. We've got over 150 species of animal that we've recorded here. There are 39 different ecological communities that exist on this property, and over 20 threatened species. So it's a really incredible place.
But the focus isn't only on preserving the natural environment.
It's quite incredible, the history. There's well over 100 years of pastoral enterprise imprinted in this landscape, and it's so important that we retain a lot of that history and be able to show people in 100 years' time what the history was of this part of the country.
The rusting relics around Narriearra Homestead tell a tale, how technology evolved over time. The new owners will preserve them and the stories that go with them.
It's a real challenge. It really is. It's the first thing we've got to do is understand it. So we're going out of our way to collect as much oral history information as we possibly can, because it's so important to have that's those stories that just inform what we do.
Although the country here at the moment is good.
Though he had little formal schooling, Bill O'Connor has a thirst for knowledge. He's an absolute treasure trove of stories and information. His recall of the years is helped by the cycle of flood and drought.
The likes of 49, 56, 74 and 2010, they're the good years that you remember. The rest of them just sort of blur off as they go. The droughts weren't too bad, you were able to handle them.
Bill O'Connor has happily shared his vast and intimate knowledge of Narriearra with the new owners, who are just as eager to record it.
Well, I've seen the bottom of every tank twice. Was the father of all droughts, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, and this country's, they call it boom and bust, but it's almost bust and boom,
Oh,
isn't
for
it?
sure. It's the land of extremes.
Oh yeah.
As Patrick Durack said. Of course, it's just about 10 years.
Yeah.
But, oh, God.
In the best years, the family mustered 3,000 cattle in a season. In the harshest, hundreds, unable to be mustered, sometimes perished in extreme heat.
If you try and muster them, when it's about over 50 degrees, they just charge, you can't do nothing with them. And then when they get back to water, they just drink too much, and over they go, especially if they've been out on perhaps 20 points of rain and drinking almost mud. No trees, can't get under crane grass. Jesus.
And you won't miss that? You won't miss the...
No. No, I won't miss none of that. When you got to pull the rifle out and start shooting them, because you can't get them up.
Narriearra has gradually been cleared of cattle, but there still are some elusive animals here.
Hey Bill, these are the last of the Narriearra cattle.
Yes, there wouldn't be many left around here now. They'll be coming close to finish.
And in terrific order,
Oh,
good season.
Yeah, well, so they should be with all the feed that's around here at the moment. But yes, they are looking good. It's a bit different to what I've been looking at for the last few years.
Over about time, as you say.
Yeah.
On the day Landline filmed these beasts, the temperature hit 43 degrees. This is a land of such extraordinary extremes. Every once in a while, when there are big rains in Queensland, this whole area is transformed into one vast inland sea. In fact, in the flood of 1974, there was so much water that it covered this post.
More or less rained for 2 years. Well, then it took another 12 months for the water to drain up, soak up, evaporate, whatever it is, wherever it goes. But yeah, it disappears from more or less a sea.
That record flood of 1974 swept away kilometres of fences.
30 mile of fencing went underwater, another 30 mile was washed away, with 60 mile of fencing, and I still haven't got some of those paddocks back.
Afterwards, the O'Connor family found several thousand sheep marooned on an island. Realising it would be many months before the water subsided and no hope of getting them to the station's shearing shed, they come up with an ingenious solution. They made a portable shearing shed, shore the sheep and freighted the wool bales on a homemade raft.
And they built the shearing shed. They got the old West Darling tent and built the shed out of it and the quarters out of it and so on. The kitchen was sort of outdoors, but they had a tent to sleep in. That was all on the ground, but...
And 98 bales of wool you put on a barge and brought back.
Yeah, 8 bales at a time.
Narriearra ran sheep until 1985, when the enterprise switched solely to cattle, better suited to the harsh environment. And speaking of hardship, it's hard to top this tale. In 1960, Bill O'Connor, then 24, suffered an horrific accident when his leg was entangled in fencing wire while operating a motorised post hole digger.
And the wire went around my foot and straight around the auger and twisted it off, or broke it at the ankle, tore it off at the knee. It was just hanging by a bit of flesh down the inside here. Looked down because the blood's just squirting out. I thought, well, I don't suppose I could put up with that for much longer either. So I pulled the belt out of my shorts and put it around it and pulled it up tight, but no, still. Yeah, so I got a lump of wire, put over the top of it, pulled it underneath and pulled it tight, got up, twisted up the top here. And yeah, the blood just petered out and stopped.
Bill O'Connor's desperate act of a wire tourniquet probably saved his life. Help came, but it was many hours and a torturous journey over rough roads before he reached Broken Hill Hospital, where his mangled leg was amputated. Despite that, Bill never considered leaving Narriearra.
So no, but I never thought of giving it up.
He learnt to walk again with a prosthetic limb, how to drive any vehicle, including trucks, and he regained his pilot's licence. Bill O'Connor has always been aware of the fragility of the country and always kept it lightly stocked to avoid overgrazing. And that has ensured the survival of species that are elsewhere listed as endangered.
You tried not to overstock, heat anything out, and of course that protects the wildlife along with your stock. So yeah, there has been a bit of a conservative attitude towards it all.
So it really does seem to have a multiple stem stage and then it goes to a single stem stage.
The rangers are discovering species here not known to exist this far south, such as this emu apple, common in Outback Queensland.
That one's a new one, I think. Well, certainly a new one for us. So definitely some interesting leaves. Quite a unique leaf really for this country.
For conservationists, Narriearra's jewel is undoubtedly its vast ephemeral wetland.
That whole area there, right on the far side, was underwater.
Yeah.
You know, it's a remarkable change in a very short period of time.
Yeah, that's what it is. Boom or bust.
Yep. What you're looking at towards there is the Narriearra swamp. So it's one of the most important inland ephemeral wetlands in central Australia. It's a really incredible system that stretches down from the Boolloo River in Queensland, fills up an amazing landscape full of water that becomes a real haven for the water birds of Southeast Asia. You know, you see water birds here migrate from Japan and China and all through Australia. It becomes a really important breeding ground, a really amazing place.
At present, archaeologists, assisted by the traditional owners, are conducting surveys of Narriearra's numerous cultural and ecological sites. Jamie Norris plans to employ Indigenous guides and traditional owners as park rangers.
It's a landscape that, as you can imagine, would have come alive, you know, 2 years out of every 12 or something like that, where you had a big flood event that come down through the Boolloo, and this area would have been like a larder, would have been like Nirvana. You know, it's just an amazing place where people could have come from all over the landscape to be able to partake in the bounty of the land. The Malinyapa, the Wankamara and the Karangappa are all three groups that are all very closely aligned with this country.
Narriearra Karapandi National Park will link up with other national parks in the region, including the Sturt National Park about 20 kilometres away. It's named after the explorer Charles Sturt. Narriearra also has illustrious links to our colonial past. The ill-fated explorers Burke and Wills trekked northward through here in 1860, only to perish in the arid inland.
There's a real connection back into that exploration heritage as well. You know, I've got a real passion for this landscape. It's home for me. I'm very proud to be working in the role that I do, where I'm from. I've got a real connection to this country. I love it. Yeah, it's remarkable.
For Bill O'Connor, selling Narriearra hasn't been easy, but he concedes that Father Time has caught up with him.
I was at the finish. I sort of can't do anything much now, so I had to get out.
Though he's almost 85, he's not putting himself out to pasture. He's downsizing. Well, sort of. He's bought an 80,000 hectare sheep station in northern South Australia, and he plans in time to move there. New South Wales Parks and Wildlife is busily upgrading roads and establishing new campgrounds while continuing to survey the cultural and ecological sites that are now part of the Narriearra Karapandi National Park. The new park will be open to the public by the end of this winter. Bill O'Connor can stay as long as he wants in his soon-to-be listed heritage house, and is in no hurry to move on, content that Narriearra is in safe hands.
No, it's going in the public domain. I don't think Dad would have objected to that. Like, he was all for conserving things, you know, all the wildlife and everything.
We're very lucky to be custodians of this amazing land.
It's just the land of extremes. You got too much or you got nothing.